Let's give you some time to think about some things, yeah? Okay.
What are we thinking?
All right, so today begins something that you'll revisit many times as we go through this class, and that is the concept of we, they. We, they. And you might think, well, that's sort of a weird concept, but it is kind of fascinating actually, because when the original Europeans crossed the Atlantic to establish colonies and colonial control, do you remember what I told you about what they considered themselves? How did they identify themselves? Sorry? That's true. Yep, you're on the right track. Any other thoughts? Did they consider themselves Americans? No. We are Europeans. When the original English colonists would come over and establish colonies, they were English. Well, today, does anyone identify yourself in here as English? Anyone say, oh, I'm English? Yeah? Oh, who did that? You're my favorite. It shall live. That's right. So somehow between then and now, there was a transition when the colonists stopped identifying themselves as English and started calling themselves Americans. How did that happen? Wahapa, as Grandpa Potter used to say, Wahapa. Wow. Have I ever told you about Grandpa Potter? Grandpa Potter, he was stone cold deaf. And so he talked funny. Now, I have what's called cultural license. I may make fun of deaf people. You cannot, because I'm part of the culture and you are not. So my grandpa talked funny, right? So, because he couldn't hear himself. And so we'd go to Grandpa and Grandma's house, and I was a high school wrestler, pretty good high school wrestler. So he'd say, and that was Grandpa saying, hey, how'd you do last Saturday? He had a dog named Tibbet. Tibbet. And that's Tippy. His dog was named Tippy. Couldn't walk straight. Anyway, there's Avery. How's your victim? Black eye?
What?
Did you deck her?
How'd you
I don't know. Somebody you were going to go take care of. Okay, anyway. Wahapa, so that the colonists would stop identifying themselves as English and start identifying themselves as American, and the English become the they. When did that happen? How did that happen? It begins right here. Okay, so I am showing you this map, and you'll see that the arm flexing itself, right? Have you ever thought of the Massachusetts little thing? It looks sort of like a weird looking arm kind of flexing. Okay, this is Massachusetts, but this is a different sort of map. This actually shows the Native American tribes and where they lived, generally speaking, and you'll see that this area was dominated by a group called the Wampanoag. Okay. And the Wampanoag, as a result of their location, were exposed to the Plymouth colony, to the Puritans. And you will see that the Puritans, probably not intentionally, wiped out the Wampanoag through, once again, smallpox. And so you'll see that the Wampanoag and the Native American population would be greatly decreased, not necessarily because of anything intentional, but disease. But this would lead to some interesting developments later on, right? A much smaller Native American population would be a population that's at risk for aggressive English expansion. And the Wampanoag knew that. And so there was actually an agreement made, 1621 treaty. The Wampanoag signed this agreement with the English colony. Basically, it's we'll leave you alone, you leave us alone. Okay? And it didn't last. Yes, dear.
So you guys talk about how Europeans brought so much disease to the Native Americans.
It did.
Did the Native Americans have any disease to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. How come diseases that the natives were immune to didn't wipe out the Europeans? Why did it only seem to go one way? And I don't know the answer. It's a good question. I don't know the answer. Okay. I am now introducing to you two wars that happened after the treaty where they agreed to leave each other alone, which shows you the ineffectiveness of that treaty. Didn't really work. The first is called the Pequot War. And you can see on this map here, there are the Pequot, right? And I'm not really holding you accountable for knowing anything besides that the Pequot War was. There was this thing called the Pequot War. It happened. We are not going to fight battles in here. I'm sorry if you think that this is a military history class and we're going to look at that battle and that general and that strategy. Maybe a little bit during the Civil War. We'll look at a few battles that were kind of cool. Gettysburg is sweet. And maybe a little bit during World War II, right? But I'm sorry, we're just not going to get into the general here, had this strategy. No, it's just not going to be it. Okay? But do know that this was a thing. It does have some importance, which I'll share with you in just a second. And then there's the next war, which is called King Philip's War. And you'll notice the years, 1675 to 1676. So look at that. We're about 100 years before the Declaration of Independence. It's still 100 years away, Declaration of Independence. So anybody who's anybody during the Revolutionary War probably hasn't even been born yet. They're not alive yet. Okay? These are the parents and the grandparents of the Jeffersons and the Washingtons, et cetera, those people. Anyway, there's something called King Philip's War. King Philip was a Native American. That's what the English call him. His name was not King Philip, but they couldn't pronounce his name. So they called him Philip. Oh, those English. Remember the other guy that they did the same thing to? Johann, what was it? John Cabot. Yeah, Johann Caboto. Nah, you're John. Okay, typical English. And again, I mean, I could spend hours and hours talking about this advance and that advance. Nah, we're not going to do any of that crap. The important thing here is that the Puritans won. They defeated the Native Americans. But that's only part of the story. The other important part of it, apparently I turned Scottish. The other impact here was when you fight together against a common enemy, and this is true. You ask Marines that fought in any battle, and you know they saw their brothers die or injured or something, and they fought bravely and heroically. When you engage in a battle like that, you become tighter. You develop a relationship. The Puritans just fought against a foe. They're tighter with each other. They're a we. And you know who didn't seem to help out too much in this conflict against King Philip and his Native American allies? England.
Oh.
The king. Okay, fine. They didn't seem to help out too much. Where were the redcoats to help us defend ourselves against these enemies? They're over there in England. You know what I mean? This is just the seed. It's just the beginning of why didn't they help us? A new they, right? Just think about this. Initially, when the Europeans arrive, they is we Europeans, they Indians. That's the we they. Now we have just the beginning of a new we they. The word American isn't even in existence yet. It's not even there. But at least there's a new they. The new they is they the English, as in we're not English. Now what we are, I don't know. But we're not English. We're Puritan. We're not Indian. So It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning of a different way of thinking about themselves, which is a concept called identity, right? How do you identify yourself? Well, you identify yourself from the family you live with, right? I'm a Potter. Does that matter? Do you take pride in your last name? Or I'm an American? Did you know studies prove this? That if you stand like this in front of a mirror for 30 seconds at the beginning of every day, you will be more confident that day.
Try it.
It's called the Superman pose. Nick, hey, next week, you have any presentations? Just before the presentation, say, hey, Miss whatever, can I stand in the hallway for 30 seconds? And what teacher's not going to let you do that? And then just go in the hallway and just, you will kick butt. It will happen. I do. Okay.
Do you really?
Yeah. Okay. Any questions here? This is the beginning of a big idea that we're going to revisit. The idea of we, they. Last slide. Only 2 slides today. Isn't that great? Are you sad? You're my favorite. Okay. You're looking at a map which should look somewhat familiar to you. We've got the colony known as Connecticut and the colony known as Rhode Island. We've looked at the development of these. There's the colony known as Plymouth, Pilgrims. And then there's something called the Massachusetts Bay Colony. To the north is something called New Hampshire, which would be swallowed in and swallowed up by Massachusetts Bay. And then there's this thing called Maine. There they are. They're English colonies. The English crown, the king, at this time was a guy by the name of James II. And he looked at these 4 separate colonies and he said, why? Why are they separate? Let's just make them one thing. We'll call it New England. New England. Have you ever wondered why they're called the New England Patriots? That's why. The New England Patriots do not represent the city of Boston. They are not called the Boston Patriots. They're not even called the Massachusetts Patriots. They're called the New England Patriots, as if to say, we are the professional team that represents this entire region. And I cannot think of a single other team that goes that way, like in any professional sport. Is there another team that is not named after a city or a state or a province in Canada? I think they're the only one. I think they're the only one. Anyway, this is the reference to it. So right. Okay. So we have the creation of and the elimination of individual colonies. The elimination of these things, they're no longer a thing. You're now called New England. And I'm going to introduce you, James II. I'm going to introduce you 3 ideas, and I want you to conclude whether the colonists were happy about these 3 things. Hey, we can no longer meet with each other and make decisions. We can't do that. Now, did they say, all right, say, we have to pay more in taxes now. Sweet. And then maybe, most annoying of all, we have to do something called mercantilism. I'll let you jot it down, and then we got to understand what that one is. If I were to ask, I'm looking at 20-ish juniors. Are there any seniors in here? Is this strictly juniors? We have a senior. Okay. 19 juniors, 1 senior. If I were to ask you right now, can you identify what the economic system of the United States is today? Could you do it? Yeah. The economic system of the United States. You think you could do it? Good. Okay, capitalism, right? Free market, very good, right? Which basically means you can manufacture a product, whatever product you want within reason. There is a little bit of government ruling about how you make it. You got to make it safely. You can't just make a crappy car with no seat belts. No, right? You got to have seat belts. You have to have airbags. There are certain rules about the product itself. You cannot make a product that you sell in toy stores called bag of glass. No. The new toy, bag of glass. Wow. No. You cannot invent a disguise that you sell to kids called invisible nighttime jogger. No, right? No, that is not safe. That is dangerous, okay? But within reason, you can manufacture a product, sell it at whatever price you want. If anyone buys it, awesome. If they don't, maybe you should think about your price without any government interference. Within reason. There are some rules about you have to pay your employees fairly. You have to offer certain safety measures, right? In this building, for example, think about this. Every door by law must have two choices when you open that door. So when you open that door, do you have two choices? Left or right? Exactly. If you can find any situation in this building where if you open the door, there's only one choice, this building is in violation of Wisconsin law. I used to teach down there, and they were in violation one time. I'll just draw out for you what. So I used to have a room, right, and Miss Driscoll's room was right here, and there was one hallway to a door, and then there was a hallway. Right, so my door only led to one way out. It was clearly in violation of Wisconsin fire code. So what they did to solve the problem was they just got rid of this and made this part of my room. So now the door led left or right. Anyway, this room itself has two choices.
Whose room is it now?
This was a long time ago. So this was back when, like, I think they called it the Burgundy room.
Yeah.
That wasn't even there. No,
Like,
that whole wing was not even there. And so it would have been, well, did you have Miss Bellargin?
Yeah.
Okay, her room wasn't even there.
Oh, so it would have been that
So,
specialized room.
Like across the hallway, that
Yeah.
thing right there, whatever that is.
That room across from Miss Crawley.
That was my old room.
Circle
Yep.
time.
So as we've said, the economic system today basically has very little government, a bit of government, but basically you manufacture what you want. This is another economic system. It's called mercantilism. It was the English economic system, and it works a little differently. Picture England as the center spider of a web, right? And all of its colonies are the flies on the web, right? Do you know why you exist, fly? For mother spider. Mother spider will go suck your blood and then go back to the middle. And then we'll go to Australia, suck Australia's blood, and then go back to the middle. And then go to New Zealand and go back to the middle. And then go to India. India, the 13 colonies, Australia, New Zealand, parts of Africa, you all exist for the benefit of England. And so this area was known for two things: trees and tobacco. Okay? You are going to cut down those trees. You shall put them on English boats at Boston Harbor. English boats shall carry them over to England. We shall make those trees into benches, chairs. What do you make trees into? Whatever. Products. Paper. Yeah, that's true.
Notebooks.
Notebook. What we said. Okay. And then sell them right back to you. We'll take what you have harvested, take it over here, make it into something, and then sell it right back to you. What do you think about that? Let me rephrase that. What do you think these people thought about that?
You gotta chop it down and buy it.
Yeah, what are you suggesting? What are you hinting at? I can tell by the tone of your voice.
Dumb.
Yeah, it's dumb. That's not fair. Because think about it. What do you think is more? Who is profiting? Right. The English. By the way, did you see what she said?
Dumb.
She said them.
They.
You see, you're already doing it. They're profiting. Not, well, overall, we're profiting because we're part of the, no. They're profiting and we're not profiting. What that? Okay. Mercantilism. It's the reason colonies exist is for the benefit of mother country. Right? You're not mother country. You help mother country. So you're different than us. And they didn't like it. Last thing to note, it didn't last. This did not last. James was overthrown in something called the Glorious Revolution. It was called the Glorious Revolution, if you're curious, because no one died. They broke into the throne room. They said, "Do you surrender?" And he said, "Yes, I do." And it was over. I'm going to guess that the person succeeding him was James III. I don't know. This isn't English history. I can definitely say it wasn't James I. That would be weird. I don't know who overthrew. Actually, I do. It was William and Mary. You don't need to know that. So the next monarch came along and said, "No, stop this. Stop treating them as a they." And so eliminated this in a goodwill gesture. But you can't unplant a seed. Know what I mean? You can't undo what you did. Once people start getting a flavor for independence, freedom, that sort of thing, we like you. Okay. That's enough. Any questions there?
I think we should play Kahoot for the rest of the day.
That's good. Now let's attack some documents.
Yeah.
In fact, let's finish it up. Let's finish up the documents. We have 3 documents left. And then we're done with document analysis. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
I am going to divide this class into thirds. This shouldn't take long. And I'm just going to have you reread, be able to answer 2 questions. 1, in Schweikart and Allen's opinion, who is the superior culture? And it's either the Europeans or the natives. And then secondly, why?
Wow.
Why? Why? Why are they superior? And there's 2 ways of making an argument that you're superior. By arguing what you have that makes you great, or by arguing what I have that makes me not great. There's 2 ways to argue that whoever's superior is better. What do they have? Or what does the other group have that makes them not so great? Both ways are valid. Okay. So this group right here, this little group of 6 right here, you will reread Schweikart and Allen, page 5, starting with the word the Aztecs. This middle glob right here, including you 2, right there. You're going to reread Schweikart and Allen, page 5, but it was sacrifice. That one. And then the rest right there. You're going to reread Schweikart and Allen, pages 6 and 7, starting with neither disease nor starvation. Please reread it. Be able to answer those 2 questions. The second one. On the back, Schweikart and Allen, page 5, but it was sacrifice, not science.
The one above page 6.
Second to last one.
Okay.
I see an error.
Counted.
Yours.
County.
Right, I'm not sure what defeat means. So third to last word, that should say defeat with an F.
Yeah.
Mine says defeat. I'm not, what is defeat?
I just didn't read it online. I knew what happened.
That's what I heard from seniors. Because I heard like 4 schools graduated.
It would appear we're ready, which is awesome. So here we go. We're gonna just look at these one at a time. This group right here, who's superior? The Europeans or the natives? The Europeans, okay. Why?
Because the Aztecs were savages and they oppressed other natives.
Okay. So, very good. So the argument being made is that the Europeans were superior because of the brutality of the Aztec. Now, will you relax? I'm not saying all Native Americans were brutal. I'm also not even saying that all Aztec were brutal. The Aztec hierarchy did engage in this brutal behavior, okay? And that made them, in Schweiker and Allen's eyes, the inferior culture, a culture that engaged in human sacrifice. That's a culture that needed to be removed. Thank you, Cortez. Okay, so I mean, he talks about how the Aztec established a brutal regime that oppressed other natives of the region, captured large numbers of them for ritual sacrifices, in which the Aztec priests cut out the beating hearts of living victims. It was easy for the Spanish to recruit other tribes to help them overthrow the Aztec. And remember, that's historically accurate. It was not however many Spanish, I can't remember, 400 Spanish, taking on millions of Aztec. No. It was 400 Spanish plus many hundreds of thousands of non-Aztec Native Americans removing the Aztec hierarchy. Okay? Good. How about this group? What's the conclusion? Who's superior? Europeans, and why?
Because the Aztecs were brutal.
Yeah, once again, the brutality of the Aztec. I mean,
Like
talk about a specific example. Look at this.
Push their bodies down, like push bodies down.
Yeah, right. I mean, this is in my opinion, the document that we are now looking at, Schrager and Allen, page 5, starting with "But it was sacrifice," has a perfect specific historical example right in it. Right? 1 4-day stretch, 1487, they killed 80,000 prisoners. Right? I mean, that's a factory, man. Wow. And I mean, and they kicked the next body down. Next, kick the next body down. Holy mackerel.
I'm confused because I thought pyramids are supposed to be like, they're like sacred and stuff, right?
Yes.
Because there's tombs in them, I thought.
Right.
In the Egyptian.
So the Egyptian ones were burial sites.
But like even mine and stuff.
But pyramids are just a shape, but they're not.
Yeah. Well,
Because
I mean, that is sort of interesting that you're saying that. You are, so she is, don't make this sound accusatory, you are guilty of imposing your value system upon a foreign entity. And in your value system, killing is bad,
Well,
right?
well, yeah.
Okay, but to the Aztec, it was a sacrifice to please their gods. And so it was ritual. But there's nothing wrong with what you're doing right now. You are doing what Cortez was doing, at least to Schweiker and Allen, saying, my God, what is wrong with these people? They need to be removed. Okay?
Well, I'm confused because like the Aztecs and the Mayans, whatever, they're all like relatively close to each other, but even they're like a lot different.
Yes, they were.
But that's confusing because they're so close.
Yep. And you know who else is right next to each other? The Germans and the French. I mean, they're right next to each other. And yet they speak different languages. And you know who else is right next to each other? The French and the Spanish. I mean, they're right next to each other. Why do they speak different languages? That's weird. It happens all the time. I mean, look who's right next to you. Canada.
Not at all.
I mean, what?
They speak the same language as us.
Do they? I mean, what's a Canuck?
I thought they speak American.
And I'm sorry, but the plural of leaf is leaves.
Wait, what happened?
Leaf, leaves. But what's that hockey team in Toronto called? Maple Leafs? What? Canada.
Oh my god.
And they drink maple syrup.
Okay,
Syrup.
Canadian.
final document is right here. Conclusion, who's superior? Nope. That would be weird if suddenly Schweikert and Allen decided the Aztec are suddenly superior, right? It would once again be the Europeans. But why?
Totally rad, dude. I'm gonna
Okay, so Mr. Krybeck here is saying that they were better fighters. I'm gonna suggest, by the way, don't be offended here. I'm gonna suggest though that you're missing the bigger argument. Allow me to say this: why did the Europeans fight so effectively?
Organized.
They're fighting for something. Very good. What is it, Mr. Krybeck? What are they fighting for? More, yeah, and way of life. Okay, let's skip down to the very last sentence.
Freedom!
Very last sentence. Indeed, only the European industrial engine could have provided the material wherewithal to maintain such armies. In other words, the reason the Europeans were superior was because of the technology. I tried to argue yesterday that Zinn says, yeah, look what the Aztec were able to accomplish without technology. That means they're superior. And what Schweikert and Allen are doing is saying, no, it is the superior technology that made the Europeans superior. Okay, but let's keep going because that's not even the most important part. And only the European political constructs of liberty, property rights, and nationalism, right? The Europeans invented this idea of, wait for it, rights. You have rights, right? You have inalienable rights. Can you name your inalienable rights?
Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness.
The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are your inalienable rights. You have constitutional rights. You have civil rights. You have rights if you're arrested. All of these things are European inventions. That makes them superior. Now remember, that's what Schweikert and Allen are saying. This is not what I'm saying. This is what Schweikert and Allen are saying. You have 3 documents that are all arguing that the Europeans were superior. Use one of them as document evidence and use the other 2 as potential sources of historical evidence. Okay? That would complete our document analysis. Okay? So I'm going to put that down. Okay? So the good news for you is we've got about 20-ish minutes here where I'm gonna just talk for a couple minutes and then the rest of the hour is you using the time wisely. And what's in your little world here? Well, first of all, you have a Kia that was due at the beginning of the hour. But good news for you, there's no grade book yet. I do not have an infinite campus grade book.
Oh.
I think they're doing in alphabetical order, and social studies starts with an S. So we're way down the line, right? So there is no grade book yet. And as a result, I'm not going to even bother checking to see if you've done these 2 Kias until I have a grade book. In other words, if you haven't done it yet, you're in luck. No penalty. Okay, don't get used to this, though. Don't get used to this. Okay?
You see these arm muscles?
Sorry.
Okay, I have 2 questions.
A couple other things. Monday, we are going to kind of attack the second paragraph that you will have written by then. This is the paragraph for the historian you agree with. So remember, there's no refutation necessary. You're simply proving the view that you agree with. Do not use the same historical example that used in the prior paragraph. You've already used that one. You got to come up with a different one, a different piece of evidence to prove that Columbus was either awful or wonderful. Okay? A couple other things that I'm done. There are 15 NHS students. And by the way, I'm looking at the potential crop of next year's NHS, right? I mean, you're the best of the brightest. So this year there are 15-ish NHS students. 14 of the 15 took this class.
Who was the one that didn't?
We don't single people out like this.
Yes, we
Dick
do.
East. Alex Dick East.
Henry's like, we won't do that. We probably go, yeah, okay.
The reason I'm telling you this is because part of the NHS list of responsibilities is tutoring. They have to. you have these paragraphs that I'm having you write. They know, because I told them yesterday, they know that you, I hope will do this, will be going to them and saying, hey, here's a paragraph. Can you help me out with it? And it's in the resource room, that side. That side has now been reserved. That is the NHS tutoring room. They are expecting you. And so if any of you take advantage
She there.
and go find, Liv Hoff is like the smartest person in this building.
Facts.
I believe that, right? She's very, very smart, very, very kind, really good writer. Ben, really good writer. Jack's not an NHS, but he's a really good writer. Go find Jack Schottler. I told him to volunteer. That doesn't make sense. If you find them and say, hey, can you look at it? And they take it, and 3 seconds later they say, looks great, give it back. Come find me. Come find me and tell me what just happened. And then that person and I will have a conversation. And then that will go differently. Okay? They will help you. Okay? So take advantage of that. So you have a couple Kias that you have extension on. By the way, 2 more Kias are due next Friday. Start attacking those. You have a paragraph that's due Monday. You have the Lexington worksheet that you're supposed to have read and answered those 8 questions-ish. By the way, did you have AP Lang?
Yeah.
Did you address this at all?
Not really, but not as much as we should.
All right.
She like barely mentioned it.
So not a perfect situation. Lindy has to go and get himself pregnant, and have a baby. And
Yeah,
so had that not happened, he would be holding your hand as far as that is concerned. But we're gonna make do with what we got. And so don't stress out over that. But please make sure you have read your witness and answered those 8 questions. Any questions for me before I let you go for the next 15-ish minutes?
Yeah.
No.
Question.
What questions?
I have a question. Do we have?
Oh, that one?
What type of evidence?
Right.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Does anyone need a copy? You didn't get one? All right, so the question of what type of evidence? Oh, I'm sorry. Was it testimony given under oath? Was it said under duress? Was he being tortured? Was it a letter? Was it a recollection from a deathbed decades after it happened? What type of evidence are we talking about? Because that gets into the credibility of the evidence. Okay, anybody else? All right, 15
I have a
minutes-ish.
question. Can we use 2 pieces of document evidence